Doom. Doom is one of the few games that needs no introduction. If you have heard of an FPS, you have heard of Doom. In fact, I don't think there's a more influential game in the history of first-person shooters than Doom. It's widely acclaimed for its violence-focused gameplay, variety of devastating weapons, and what separates it from its contemporaries and predecessors, like Wolfenstein and Quake, is its cast of enemies being billions of demons, and none have quite a fan base as the Baron of Hell. Intimidating, powerful, raw. The long history of the Baron has been followed by banger after banger in design. It truly is difficult to mess up Satan on roids with the attitude of a rabid Tyrannosaurus. But within each and every aspect of Doom lies three pillars in which every design falls in between: dark fantasy, brutal science fiction, and a strong, readable character. Of course, there is also coolness, but that goes without saying. Click on the time on the screen right now for evidence. So assuming the Baron existed in the hypothetical middle of this pyramid, what would it look like if instead it existed on one of the three extremes? Well, that's why I'm here to find out. You need more? Okay, listen, dude, a guy just wants an excuse to draw some demons. If you have a problem with that, then you can go now to find out which philosophy I'm starting with. What is dark fantasy? Well, according to a trusted source, Wikipedia, dark fantasy is defined as a subgenre of literacy, artistic, and cinematic fantasy works that incorporates disturbing and frightening themes. The term is ambiguously used to describe stories that combine horror elements with one or other of the standard formulas of fantasy. Think media like Cthulhu and Elden Ring. Now, for the tentative amongst you, you may have heard horror and recoiled. Last time Doom embraced horror, it didn't end well. But you must remember that for anyone that isn't the Slayer, the Doom is a dark, horrifying, violent world where death and suffering are in active supply. And encountering a Baron is blood-chilling for anyone who can't bench press a cargo ship and move at Mach 12. So this dark fantasy Baron will be the Horror Baron. But not only that, the fantasy part means first and foremost, this version of the setting will be made with the priority of symbolism first. So what does the Baron represent in Hell, to the Slayer, and within the overall story of Doom? To start off simple, Hell is a place of anguish and suffering where errant souls go to experience eternal punishment. Its land is a cracked warscape of a billion past battles, whose histories and death tolls have been forgotten and disregarded under the flames of a billion wars still raging. Its only rivers are comprised of lava made from the essence of every wrong a god has ever received. And the only place that can reach safety are the 1,000-mile-tall towers where the Dark Lords of Hell resides. This is where the Baron comes in. The first piece of lore that doesn't just state how big and scary they are comes from Doom 2016, where they're stated to be the most powerful members amongst the unholy order of the Hell Knights, and that their purpose is to be the royal guards of the Dark Lords, and also required to hold essential locations by any means possible, be they demon, mortal, or the guy that's gonna wreck them. So with that little lore tidbit, I came up with this. I started with an armored guard with horns and vaguely demonic iconography. Then I shifted around the proportions a bit, zoomed in with the detailed face, and eventually ended here. Witness him, his undisguised power, armor that references previous barons, and how this doesn't work. Don't get me wrong, it's cool and all, but it's not a baron. This is where we get into our second point, how the baron acts. Barons in-game will throw fireballs with reckless abandon, chucking them like a baseball pitcher on steroids, and crack. Almost as if they're angry that they can't punch you right now. Speaking of punching, they'll often jump to close a gap. And if not, a good 240-mile sprint will do the trick. Once close up, that's where this guy's fun begins. Typically through slamming with claws, white-knuckle punches, and explosive ground pounds, the Baron is the only super heavy demon that actually runs up to you for the fight, rather than fire from a distance. This guy, on the other hand, would chuck fireballs behind the door and close it if you got too close. This is probably still lore accurate concerning the Royal Guard claim, but in a different way. The difference is how the Baron behaves. Not like an actual, typical guard that you would think of, but more like a guard dog. And this design should reflect that. So let's make it more primal.
Wait a minute! Who are...
For this, it's time to decide a base for our monster. That means it's the return of our old friend, the concept grid. This time I gave myself 1 minute to randomly draw what I think would work for the Baron. Starting with the body, one of the first things that interested me was the arched back of the second picture. And then in the third picture I made skin that looked like wings. Both would soon be carried forward. I decided as I went on I wanted a more lanky figure than the Baron most were used to, really liking this drawing of the Baron looking back at the camera. From there I went on, experimenting with more body shapes and the proportions. I determined that I wanted a bipedal, lanky, hunched figure with long claws. Now all that was left was the head. Starting off with what I could only describe as an inbred goat, I decided to make it longer, but I didn't end up liking how bird-like it was, so I went for a more evil, bat-like feature. This went on until I eventually reached the saurian dog-like face. And with that, all I needed to do was correct the posture a bit, and now it was time for the expanded art. Here I fully settled on that draconic look. Jagged teeth, skeletal body, yet thick muscles and long fingernails. All under skin so tight, organs, bones, and individual ligaments were visible, to really sell that demonic appearance. But before you click off, there's still more to do. This design is not done, needs a little more flair. But first I have something important to tell you. I can proudly boast that I use zero AI in the production of my videos, but that means it takes a lot of time to produce. Now, I won't tell you to hit that subscribe button, that's your decision to make, and I want to earn it rather than ask. But what I will ask for you is to comment. Tell me if you like the design, what would you change about it, and what you should try after this Baron series is over. I read every comment, and those are what actually steer this channel. So, hey, don't be shy. Now where were we? Oh yes. This look is good, but isn't nearly dark fantasy enough. So the final question is... This question is about what the Baron is in the story of Doom. A personal philosophy of mine is when creating anything, the appearance should be so informative that a few sentences are all you need to determine what they are and what they are about. A fantasy saying means nothing is holding you back from doing so. So what is the Baron in the story? Well, as I said, they are a powerful demon, which are often the last regular enemies you will encounter. They function as royal guards for important beings and locations, and they live in hell. Not much, but that is expected of Doom. So we look into what hell does in Doom and go from there. In the game, the forces of evil are always invaders. It always distorts and corrupts whatever and whoever it touches far beyond any point of recognition. Its one and only goal is to forcibly reap the souls of the defenders for no other reason than inexhaustible greed. And as explained in Doom Eternal from one throwaway line from Samuel Hayden, once a soul is taken from a being, the body becomes a demon. But the only ones initially spared from the apocalypse are the cultists, which open the portals. At least till they're not needed anymore, in which case their soul is also taken and they're normally used as controlled fodder. Speaking of fodder, after everything is said and done, demons are expendable. Not even demon lords are safe from this, so why would their guards not be? Even in the Dark Ages, it strikes more that the Barons are mainly used as bargaining chips, not actual guards, and Doom Eternal's Firebone Baron only exists because nobody cared to pull any regular Barons out of a lava pit. And in terms of gameplay, the Baron only exists to slow you down from reaching someone more important. And let's be honest here, to the Slayer, this is what the Barons are. We could go in the direction that the Barons were once cultists that thought they would ascend, only to meet the same grim fate as everyone else. Then, in spite of their new title, all they are is slaves, deliberately debilitated for their new role. We can start by changing their stance, probably by only having them on their knees. We can do this by... There we go! Next thing we can do to add to the kinda regal theme they have is to enlarge their horns. Oh come on, we can do better than that. I said more! There we go, perfectly suffering. Next thing we can do is look at the Baron's favorite tool, fire. Their green fire can be symbolically significant. Perhaps it could be a stance for the darkness in their soul, a darkness that they accepted in the worst of circumstances, only for that darkness to be the only thing left within them. One idea I had to really give it a fantasy feel was to make the Baron appear hollow, with fire visible from within the core of their body, as if they have no organs and were just puppets to the fire. Next idea I had was to burn their hands, their wings torn and burnt from the flames and palm bones visible underneath. And one more detail that amused me was their lack of eyes. Perfect place for the fire to emerge rather than their comparatively unharmed mouth. Put that all together and you have... In ancient times, hell attacked and consumed many realms. But before the time of the Slayer, there was one that nearly succeeded in holding the Dark Realm back. But once the mouths of their evil rulers stopped chewing, that is when they spit unholy promises, attracting the ears of those who sought power. This brought a cult within the walls where no demon could pass. Few are remembered of this cult, other than their most devoted, who gave up their souls to hell and sported a crown of horns, strength to break even the strongest iron, and with unmatched controls over the blazing green fire. And with it they brought their old world to its knees and damnation to its people. But once the cult had gone to the Dark Lords to claim their seats of power, there were none. Instead, the fire they used consumed their souls and hollowed their bodies. Their new strength and size only made now for guarding those that promised them power, and their heavy crowns, no longer being held by lofty promises, were allowed to fall and break the necks of all who bore them. During the time of the Slayer and the Unholy Crusade, the beast had slaughtered millions of barons as he hunted the Dark Lords. And by the time of the Slayer's defeat, most barons were forgotten. Few still kept as gods, yet the rest were now burnt bones and flesh that marked the path of the greatest massacre in Hell's history. And now they stand over the war-torn region that now contains pieces of their home and brethren, left to nurse their wounds and new ones collect due to their flame, useless and irrelevant only when the Dark Lord calls upon them. Or they meet the one who hunts, the one who slaughters, the one who rips and tears.